try to get the laptop up. We're really honored to have Debbie Tackett, who is the Chief of Historic Preservation within the city of Miami Beach. And she joined Miami Beach as a senior planner in 2006. And in her current role, she has been responsible for survey, research, and designation of local historic districts and numerous historic sites, and also reviewing construction projects for compliance with the city's Certificate of Appropriateness criteria within our 14 local historic districts. And Debbie has worked in fields of planning and preservation for over 16 years and holds a Master's of Science in Historic Preservation from Columbia University and a Bachelor in Architecture from the University of Miami. So let's welcome Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, MDPL, for putting this wonderful event on. So we've heard a lot of really interesting information, and it was all very positive. If you're anything like me, some of the information can be overwhelming. It can also, when talking about historic districts specifically, cause a level of anxiety. I know one of the reasons why I went into historic preservation out of architecture school is because I am somewhat change resistant. And one of the things that I think is very helpful to understand and to kind of revisit from time to time when we're talking about future adaptation is the significance of our city and our historic districts. The unique and really vibrant character of our historic districts is due in large part to the significant development periods, which was mentioned in a couple presentations earlier. The architecture that was designed and built during these development periods really embodies social changes as well as economic changes that were occurring during these times. So this is a brief timeline from early development through to the post-war boom, showing different development periods, through the aging of the city, all the way up until today, which is kind of seen as a renaissance of sort of art and culture within the city. So when these significant times in our history occurred, architecture reflected what was happening. Our priorities changed, technology changed, and our social values changed. And that is seen throughout the historic districts. On the screen right now is a simplistic view of the design continuum in Miami Beach. So when you see the vernacular through to the contemporary, each one of these styles can be tied back to a particular period, development period in our history. And each is very reflective of the current style, the current technology, the current availability of materials at the time. That is the vernacular, for example, that was local materials. Transportation was very difficult, so most of the architectural materials were things that were readily found either on the island or across the mainland. That is seen through the Art Deco period, where you had very economically built structures with almost all the decoration on the front and on the interior, through to the post-war modern boom with the exuberant architecture, the efficiency, the really proliferation of air condition changed the architectural forms. So each one of these styles, what's important to note is they're really a product of their time. It's really a timeline not only of architecture, but also of what the social changes that were occurring. While our historic districts themselves create this kind of timeline, which really provides incredible educational opportunities because the evolution can be seen in almost all of our historic districts contain these different styles. What's really interesting when we're talking about further adapting these properties is a vast number of our historic properties actually contain what Alan Schulman referred to as a layered level of significance. So So that's on a single property. It really provides an enhanced richness of significance. This is a great example, which is it was known as the Crown Hotel probably for the longest point in its life. It was built as the Lord Tarleton Hotel as an Art Deco skyscraper in 1940. As a pristine example of the Art Deco. Now in the 1950s, that was modified. It was added on to by Melvin Grossman with a very indicative characteristic post-war modern building using the technology of the time, which then actually added to its significance. So the 1950s portion, which is the addition that was added to the south side of the property, is actually something we value now. So while it was a change in the Art Deco style that we also value, it was something that added value. And again, in the 2007, I believe, a contemporary edition was put on. At that time, the developer of the property actually moved a 1929 single-family home from the west side of Collins Avenue to this site to be part of the same complex. So this particular property currently has 4 levels of significance. So the changes that we may be resistant to, some of us, maybe not all, actually enriches the character of our historic districts and also provide these incredible educational opportunities to understand the full evolution of our city. Another example, great example of this, is Shelbourne Hotel. We see the photograph on your right-hand side. That was the original Igor Poloritsky Shelbourne. And then later, Morris Lapidus came along and added onto the front of the building. So that's something that we typically, as preservationists, be very concerned about, because that's the primary facade of the building. But now we've learned to appreciate it to the point where that Lapidus addition, inclusive of the amazing post-war modern porte-cochere, has acquired significance, and that is something that we actively try to protect. In addition to these types of things, which are very visible, properties change all the time in terms of replacing their windows, hurricane impact windows, with adding accessible entrances, accessible ramps. Those are things that aren't as visible, but still changes that are occurring that don't devalue the historic significance. They actually only increase the value. Another example that I love to show, especially when I'm speaking at an MPPL event, is the 10th Street Auditorium. This is a great example of changes that have occurred over time, that have acquired significance, and changes that have occurred over time that maybe weren't so sensitive and weren't ideal in terms of preserving the character-defining features of these important architectural styles. So this is kind of a diagram you see on the upper, I guess it's your left-hand side. That's how the property looked in 2007. This is a city-owned property. When we looked at the redevelopment of this particular structure, we tried to distill out what was significant and maybe what changes had occurred that weren't so great. So you can see this, the Beach Patrol headquarters, which is on the east facing the ocean, was built as a separate single building in the late 1930s. That over time was added onto, and in our opinion at the time, it was added onto inappropriately to a certain degree. The auditorium that was built in the 1950s actually obliterated the western facade of the Beach Patrol headquarters and connected it, so you lost that kind of 360-degree view of the building. So in 2007, we took a look at it. We realized there was some significance in the 1950s structure. Well, the mistake we believe was made is that it harmed the late 1930s building, the Robert Taylor building. So the proposal that came forward to the Historic Preservation Board was to retain a portion of that 1950 1950s building, which is the portion you see fronting on Ocean Drive today. Dissect the middle out so that we could recapture the full 360-degree architecture of the Beach Patrol headquarters, and then insert a contemporary addition between the two buildings while leaving space between the two. So you can see photographs of 1939, that was the original Beach Patrol, and then in 53, the 10th Street Auditorium was built, and at the bottom screen you can see what it looks like today, which in our opinion kept the important components and actually made it even more significant, because now you have the Beach Patrol, you have the 1950s, and then you also have this new contemporary edition that was designed very sensitively. And the hope is, whenever we make these changes today, the hope is that those will acquire a level of significance in the future. And so to wrap it up, when we look at embarking on this very challenging discussion and very emotional discussion about modifying these buildings even more and changing our historic districts, I think what's important to note is that this period in time is probably in 50 years going to be in someone else's presentation about this is another layer. This is a watershed moment for not only Miami and the state of Florida, but also the entire world as to how we're going to deal with this. If we design things properly and well and appropriate to our existing fabric, respecting what we have, and maybe in this instance, even improving upon what we have, then we have added yet another layer of significance. So that is my hope. That is my, I'm really optimistic and really positive about it. I think we have a great team working at the city. We have a great team of consultants. And, I'm trying to keep an open mind, and I think it's really an exciting point in history where we can do even